This will be the agenda for the talk. I'm basically going to base this on my experience in various countries which I've worked in, traveled in. I've been a journalist, I've been in publishing, I've been in academia, etc. So these will be my observations. We'll be looking at national and cultural differences, personal observations. Should you translate? Should you go with the local language? Some finance and budgetary issues. Tom already touched on some of those. What's being called nationalism in publishing. And my experiences with two companies which I've done a lot of work with over my career, EBSCO and Wolters Kluwer. They're examples. There are many other companies, of course. And then ending with SSP in the international arena. What is culture? I mean, really, it's a group of characteristics that define a people. It could be everything from cuisine to religion to language, social habits, etc. But it's really helpful to understand the culture of a country before you do business in it. Read up on the history, etc. Religion, the quest for the transcendental, the mystical, some kind of a meaning of life, etc. How is that translated in different countries? Is religion a big factor? Is it a small factor? It's just important to understand religious sensitivities in the various countries. Etiquette. Do I shake hands? Do I shake hands with women? Can I shake hands with men? Do I bow? Etc. Language. Very, very important. No matter, I am not very good with languages, and no matter how many times I travel to Japan, I've traveled to Japan, I can still say hello, goodbye, thank you. That's about it. It helps a lot to be able to have a basic, rudimentary conversation. Time zones. If you're traveling to China or Japan and you're landing at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, don't schedule a meeting for 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You give yourself some time to, ease in, get a night's sleep, so you don't look like you're, half dead when you go to the meeting. What is the role of government? Does it have a big role? Is it more laissez-faire? It's important to understand the government sensitivities, government regulations, that type of thing. The business climate. What are the business rules, business habits? How do you do business? What are the accepted practices? What aren't accepted practices? It's not a matter of good or bad, right or wrong. It's just a matter of people do things differently in different countries. And if you want to do business in these countries, you just have to understand the sensitivities. The role of contracts. Can you make handshake deals? Do people really follow the letter of the contract? How are they interpreted? Culture is really a blend of tradition plus the modern world. How do these things all blend together? As I mentioned, I was a correspondent in various countries, Turkey, Jordan, Israel, Egypt, Turkey, Japan, China, and Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. I found it's really important to understand the history. When I was in, for example, Northern Ireland, if I was in a Catholic area, I had to be aware of their sensitivities. If I was in the Protestant area, etc. If I'm in, say, Turkey or Egypt, I have to be aware of certain sensitivities based on their history. What's the political system? Authoritarian, democracy, parliamentary. Again, it's not a value judgment saying what's good or what's bad, what's right or what's wrong. It's just a matter of understanding the system. What's the degree of social cohesion? Is it a very cohesive country built by immigrants? The U.S. has immigrants from all over the world. Brazil has immigrants from all over the world. Israel has immigrants from all over the world. Or say a country like maybe Japan or China, where it's a more stable. There's not a lot of in-migration, say, of non-Japanese or non-Chinese. The educational system. This is particularly important to us because we're publishers. A lot of us are publishers. Is it a good educational system? Is there a lot of research? Are the people highly literate? Will they be able to read the products that we're trying to sell? Is there a merit system? how do people advance in business, in government, in academia, etc. I'm moving fast because I want to leave time for questions. Should you translate or work in the local language? Eric Newman, who's somebody who I've worked with over the years and has given me a lot of good advice. Eric Newman's rule, certain things like certain subject areas like law, primary care, nursing, etc., tend more towards the local language. Other disciplines like math, the hard sciences, and medical specialties, more universal. Universal meaning English for the most part. Researchers can often read the papers in English, but it's helpful to have a translated abstract to just point them in the right direction. The more clinically oriented publications, say practice guidelines, people need to understand them like that, immediately. So they have to be accurate and have to be in the local language. Very important. Finance, budgetary issues. The financial health of the individual countries and markets. Tom talked about Southern Europe. Southern Europe is having problems right now. If you have a lot of customers in Greece or Spain, payments may be very slow. They're not growth areas. Other areas of the world are. So it's important to understand, the financial health of the various countries will help you deploy resources, investments, sales strategies, etc. What's the budgetary cycle? Fiscal year, calendar year. When do you sell? When do you send your salespeople out? When is the prime selling season? Often driven by the budgetary cycle. Currency exchange rates are very important. I wouldn't recommend building a business model based on trying to beat the currency exchange rates, but it's just important to understand that they're there and they can affect your margins. Pricing, I'm not going to go into detail because we're not supposed to talk about pricing, but Midoriya Chico from Keio University was at an SSP meeting 6 years ago, and the comments made were, we'd like to purchase all of your publications, but we can't afford them. So if you keep increasing your prices, we will simply have to start making very hard choices. And that's playing out all over the world, not just Japan, but the U.S., all over. Who are the decision makers? Should you be talking to the director of the library? Should you be talking to the dean of the medical school? You don't want to be wasting your time talking to the wrong people if they're not the people who can make the purchase decisions. You want to find out who they are, and those are the people you want to talk with. Open access, the impact on institutional budgets. Is it just cost shifting? Is it going from paying for subscriptions to paying author fees? Just how is it playing out? It's just another factor to look at. Academic Library, Journal of the Medical Library Association about a year ago, interviews with 8 medical library directors in the U.S., and each one of them discussed how they were dealing with downsizing in their respective libraries, everything from losing from 25 to 50% of their space. So how do they deal with this? How does it affect their purchasing power, et cetera? And what's the role of consortia? Very important. You have to go through consortia. Can you go individually? Those of you who do business in Brazil, there's one very large consortia, and you really have to work with them. You have to figure out how to work with them. You need people on the ground, et cetera. Other countries, the situation is different.
Okay. 6 minutes.
Okay. A phenomenon I refer to as nationalism in publishing. Basically, we're seeing increased, you've heard for the past 2 days, increased submission rates from a lot of countries, especially Japan and China. The acceptance rates are not going up very high, or they're static. But the governments are pouring more money into the STM sector, science, technology, and medical sector. These governments are looking at ways of trying to have this research published in local publications why would the Chinese government invest heavily in STM so that Chinese researchers can publish their journals in journals that are published in Europe or the U.S.? They'd rather have them published in China. The URL under Japan is a citation to a very interesting article giving the Japanese perspective on this. And the article in the People's Daily, Mark Bargery referred to it in the previous session, but it's a interesting way that the Chinese are looking at the quantity of research, quantity and the quality of research and where it's being published. So I would recommend that you have a look at these. And again, it's a basic business decision. If I'm in the government, I'm pouring money into this sector. I want to see a return in the home country. One company I've worked with a lot over the years. This is not a plug for the company. I'm just using them as an example. EBSCO subscription services, like any subscription agency, whether it's Sweats, Harasowitz, EBSCO, etc., they've been global forever. You know, they deal in multiple currencies. They work with journalists from all over the world. EBSCO hosts, is mainly English language, but they have portals now in many languages. They just launched an Arabic language portal, and some of their English language databases are a mix of English and the local language, with offices all over the world except for Antarctica. I don't think penguins read very much. Ovid Wolters Kluwer. Again, Wolters Kluwer is the second largest multinational publishing organization after Elsevier. They work primarily in English, but they have a lot of offerings in Spanish, French, Chinese, and other languages are under development. One of their initiatives, I find it very interesting. It's the Joanna Briggs Institute. It's headquartered in Australia. It's a collaboration between nursing researchers really all over the world in many languages. And it's a good example of international collaboration in a particular subject area. And just in general, the vendors, EBSCO, Ovid, Charlesworth. If you go around the exhibit area at the SSP meeting, they contribute a lot to SSP. They contribute a lot to the organization. I think the membership is probably close to 40 or 50% of vendors, quite high. So they play an important part in the scholarly publishing chain. SSP in the international arena. Adrian touched on this. We've been traditionally focused on the U.S., the English language, English-speaking countries.
Tom, yes, glass of water.
Sorry. We're expanding our focus to cover other countries. And Adrian referred to the International Task Force, and we're looking at ways of bringing all of the international efforts being undertaken now by the different committees at SSP, and trying to bring them all together, focus a little bit more. International attendance at SSP meetings is increasing, but it's not where we'd like it to be. We'd like to see more participation and joint international meetings with other scholarly societies. Mentoring is important. And yesterday we started a new award for international cooperation, international publishing. It was given to Takeshi Yamagawa of USACO for his efforts in bringing people from his country to the SSP meetings. We hope to see this in the future, other awardees from other countries as well. And any of you who want to volunteer, you're welcome. Please approach me or Adrian or anybody else, and we'll be happy to have your efforts. Thank you.